Official Texas Tech time is on the phone, I think. So I'm going to introduce you, and then you can turn the mics on. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rishi Batra. I'm director of the Academy for Leadership in the Legal Profession, and we are very excited today to have Kliff Kingsbury here to speak with us about his leadership and leadership philosophy. The way this is going to work is I'm going to do a brief introduction of Brian Shannon, who many of you know. Brian Shannon will introduce our speaker. We'll do a brief question and answer up here on the stage between Brian and Coach Kingsbury, and then we're going to open it up to you in the audience as well. I'll be running around with a microphone, and Corey, who is not yet in the room, will also be running around with a microphone as well. A couple announcements about the Academy. For those of you who are 2Ls and 3Ls, know that in the Academy, the book discussion groups are still going on this semester. I believe almost everyone has signed up for a book discussion group. If you have not signed up for a book discussion group, please email Dr. Clem as soon as possible. Also, for those of you who are 2Ls and 3Ls in the Academy, you know that there's a couple extra special events that we have reserved for you. If you haven't reached out to Dr. Clem about those, there are still, I believe, a few tickets left for Cokie Roberts tomorrow. If you want to go and see her for free, we have reserved some tickets for you there. For everyone, later this week on Wednesday, Chief Judge Stewart of the Fifth Circuit will be here and speaking here in speaking in 109 on his judicial philosophy, his judicial leadership. That is an amazing, he's an amazing speaker and he's an amazingly accomplished judge. And so we are very lucky to have him as well on Wednesday. Please come out and see him on Wednesday. For those of you who are 1Ls and don't know exactly what I'm talking about with the Academy, we will have an opportunity for you later on this semester for you to apply to be a 2L in the Academy, where you can take part in even more events, more focused discussion on leadership, and learn one-on-one in some small group workshops as well from some of our guests as well. So if that's something that interests you, feel free to come and talk to me after the event. Also look out for an email later on in the semester where you have an opportunity to apply. Great. I'm happy to introduce Professor Brian Shannon, who many of you know. Professor Brian Shannon is a professor here at the law school since 1988. He's the Charles B. Tex Thornton Professor of Law. He graduated from Angelo State in 1979. He graduated with his JD in the University of Texas in 1982, where he was first in his law school class. He teaches, here he teaches contracts, property, criminal law, products liability, mental disability law. And on top of that, on top of his teaching duties, he is our university faculty athletics representative to the NCAA. And in that role, he has also been our Big 12 representative, and he's on the national board for the 1A faculty athletics representatives, in which he has been reelected as president now. Is it twice he is now being elected? So he is also a great leader here at the law school. He is very involved in our athletics programs, and in that role, he will be introducing our featured speaker here today. So please help me in welcoming both Brian Shannon and Coach Kingsbury.
Thanks, Professor Batra, and welcome to everyone. I don't really understand, though. I saw posters with Coach Kingsbury and saw people coming up wanting pictures with Coach Kingsbury, and nobody asked me. But I'm not surprised at all. I'm delighted to have the chance to participate today. We're going to do a very informal Q&A. I've had the privilege of getting to know Coach in my role as faculty athletics rep, and he's one of the most dynamic, top young coaches, head coaches in Division I in America. We're delighted to have him here. But a little bit of background, went to high school in New Braunfels, came to Texas Tech then as an undergrad, as a football student athlete. And I emphasize the term student athlete because Kliff was. He set records as a quarterback, played in two very different styles of offenses, first for Coach Spike Dykes and then later for Coach Mike Leach. Very traditional approach versus a very modern, some would say pass-happy approach. Both were successful. while here. A friend of mine who works in the Big 12 had been Kliff's academic advisor, and after one semester said, you really don't need to come back to the Marcia Sharp for any academic assistance or help unless you just want to. Kliff went on to not only an outstanding playing career while at Texas Tech, but was named by the National Football Foundation as one of the top 14 scholar athletes in the country, and then later as the top academic All-American in the country for his graduating class. After leaving Texas Tech, he was in the pros for 5 years and then was able to start his coaching career at the University of Houston, eventually rising to be co-offensive coordinator at Houston. Then when Coach Sumlin got hired at Texas A&M, Kliff went with him, was the offensive coordinator, coached a young lad who became the Heisman Trophy winner, Johnny Manziel, who had another nickname, and then got the nod 2 years ago and started his third year as our head coach. So let's again welcome Coach Kingsbury. Now, this is about leadership, Coach, and you've got over 100 young men on your team, 85 who are on scholarship, but many more when we count walk-ons and others. What's your leadership philosophy?
Yeah, that's a great question. First off, appreciate the introduction. Obviously, y'all lawyers are impressive. He did that without any notes, so it was really good. I think, as a young head coach that takes over a program, when you first get here, you're all about strategy and scheme, plays and players and things like that, because you get the job, you're just trying to keep your head above water, things are moving fast, it's just about trying to win games on Saturday. And, the first year you do that, you go through that year, have some success. This next year you hit a rough spot, and you start asking yourself, we better be more philosophy-based. You better have some principles that your team can look back upon when things are going great. And so we've really made a conscious effort after this past year to have some core principles in place. And I brought those to share. But the first thing, when freshmen get here, the first speech I give our freshman student athletes is, we are not an equal opportunity program. And what I mean by that is, if you do everything right, you go to class, you work hard, you study, you're an outstanding citizen, you're going to be treated way up here. If you don't go to class, if you're on lists, if you're not doing the right thing, you're going to be treated down here. And they know that from day one, that if you handle your business, you will be treated amazingly well, and if you don't, there will be consequences. And we're consistent with that message. But core principles that we put in place after going through this year and talking to our coaches, and my entire coaching career, my entire playing career, things that are important to me and important for us to have in our program, we came up with 7, and I'll read them out to you real quick and elaborate a little bit on each one. So the first one is, compete at everything you do, whether it's in the classroom, on the practice field, in the weight room, whatever you're doing, try to be the best. I think that's key. That's something, both my parents were educators, so obviously academics was first and foremost in my life from an early age. And so I want our players to view that the same. So compete at everything you do. Secondly, on and off the field, conduct yourself in a manner that would make your family and this program proud. And that's just, do the right things. It's not hard to do the right things. I tell our student athletes, I'm sure some of y'all are familiar with how it's set up, but they have every need, help they could possibly have when it comes to academics, athletics. So it's harder to fail than it is to succeed, right? You really have to try to screw this deal up to not make it. And so we're big on citizenship and doing the right thing consistently on and off the field. Be the most mentally tough team in the country. I think that's kind of the Texas Tech approach. We're out here in West Texas. It's a tough, gritty community. That's the beauty of it. That's what I love about the people here, is that they're tough-nosed, and they have a chip on their shoulder. Embrace coaching. And we talk about never stop trying to evolve as not only a player, but as a person. Try to get a higher GPA. Try to expand your horizons when you get to college. Meet more people. Join a fraternity or a club. And the same with on the field. Listen to your coaches. They are trying to help you, and don't just shut it off and think you know everything, which, as you know, a lot of 18-year-olds know everything. Outwork everyone. Work ethic, to me, That's number one. And all the successful people I've been around, which are mainly, football coaches or players, but the top, Tom Brady of the world was the hardest working human I'd ever seen in my life, on and off the field. And so we're big on outworking everybody. Always have your teammates back. And once again, that's on and off the field. You see your teammate, he's underage drinking somewhere, or he's smoking weed or doing something that he shouldn't, have his back, just like you would on the field. If they break a play and you got to go make the tackle because he missed it, have his back. And the last one is leave a legacy, don't take from the past. And that's make your own mark on this program. Wes Woger, Michael Crabtree, those guys, they've done here. That's why they have the nice stadium. That's why they have the nice building. Make sure you leave your own mark. So those are the 7 things that are on our wall when you get over to the facility, and what we kind of base our leadership on.
You touched on that, Coach, a little bit, but how did you come up with those 7?
Yeah, just going through the season, making mental notes, and a season like that will make you read a bunch of coaching books to make sure you know what you're talking about. But just mental notes, and then talking to members of our staff and what's important to you, and consistent themes that kept coming up. And we came with these 7, and those will evolve, those will change. As we have more success and things happen, you'll add more, you'll take away some, it'll be more precise, and I don't think that's a bad thing, to be able to evolve your philosophy as you go.
Some of those things could easily be translated to our students, our graduates, in terms of always trying to outwork your opposing counsel and never slough off. Who are some important leaders in your life who influenced you as you were developing?
Yeah, playing football my entire life, most of them ended up being coaches, but the first 2, my parents were both educators, like I mentioned. My mom was actually the mock trial coach at New Braunfels High School. My dad was the head football coach. So I'd go to mock trial when I was young and watch my mom interact with the young lawyers in high school. And then my dad was the head football coach. So their big deal was they always treated people well. They were consistent in their message, and they had great work ethic. And they were the kind that'd be up early and late working with their teams. And that always stuck out with me. Going on to play, like he mentioned, I had Coach Dykes here, who was an unbelievable man. Led by love, really. He made you feel like you were loved, and he was kind of the grandpa figure. And then you had Mike Leach, who was way outside the box, and way outside the box. But there was a magic to it. He had a confidence to it, and you just knew he was going to lead you to success by his confidence, his knowledge, his intellect. And so it was just different ways to do it. And then, of course, you get to the pros, and I was fortunate enough to be around Bill Belichick, who is the most thorough human I've ever seen in my life, as far as making sure every scenario you'd ever face in a game you'd seen 10 times over during a week of practice. I was around Herm Edwards, who was one of the best public speakers I've ever seen. He now works for ESPN, and countless other coaches. And I think you take a little from each one. What fits you, or what fits your personality, and how can you incorporate that in your leadership style?
Are there any particular characteristics you remember about Coach Dykes or Coach Leach?
Yeah, I think, once again, first and foremost, the work ethic. You see successful people, and those were the ones. Now, Coach Dykes would get up real early and do his thing. Coach Leach would just stay up real late. So he'd come in, and there's different ways to get things done. That's the beauty of, life, is that, Coach Leach wouldn't get in till noon, but he'd stay up till 2, and that was his window, and he maximized it. Coach Dykes came in really early and had pretty normal hours, but both of them worked extremely hard, recruiting, coaching, building relationships with players, and so that's what's always stuck out to me. And the successful people I've been around, if you continue to work hard, you're going to have some roadblocks, you're going to have some bad years, you're going to have some bad things happen, good things will come your way.
What are some leadership traits that you've taken from these that you've been around that you've tried to incorporate and make part of your own?
Yeah, I think consistency. If you're going to be a hard ass all the time, then be a hard ass all the time. But if one day you're a hard ass, the next day you're really sweet, well, it's not going to work. They're going to see through that. And so I've had coaches and leaders that 100% of the time they're hard asses, and kids would run in front of a train for them. They die for them, because you know what you're going to get. You see the passion. You see that they care about you. And then I've had some leaders. I was fortunate enough, Coach Browse, who's the head coach of Baylor, was running backs coach here. He leads. He's a very caring, nice, charismatic, positive man, and he's always that way. Whether you win, lose, or draw, always that way. And that worked as well. So I think consistency in your message, in those people that are following you, as long as you're consistent, they'll have to respect that.
And did any of those coaches dance with you?
They don't have the moves like that.
All right.
They don't have those moves.
Now, what about negative characteristics? I know when I started teaching, I remembered certain things of some professors that I thought, boy, I never want to do that. And I hope I've stuck with that. How about you?
Yeah, no question. I would say, first and foremost for me is just any sort of public humiliation, whether it be a player or a coach. I just feel those conversations are better had behind closed doors. And are there times you're going to have to jump somebody's ass? Yes, 100% of the time. But especially the millennials these days, if you embarrass a kid in front of a group, he'll shut it down on you. And coaches the same way. They'll lose credibility if you're just going on a tirade in front of the kids and that's their coach. Well, then guess what? In that room, he may have just lost some respect with that group. And so that's, first and foremost, is the biggest thing I try to avoid.
On that theme, several high-profile student-athletes have chosen to transfer. Others transfer more maybe routinely. It's part of Division I football. Some commit to come, then they change their mind. You have a philosophy on what you say or don't say?
Yeah, I just try to be positive in that. Young people, there's, as y'all know, instant gratification it's huge. They want it to happen now, and if it doesn't happen now, well, it's somebody else's fault, and I better go somewhere else and try to figure it out instead of sticking it out and keep working and believing in the principles that got you there. So I've always just been positive. Young people in those decisions have a lot of different influences coming their way, and for me, as an older person, to get up there and say anything negatively would be out of place, and I don't think it'd get anything done. So when things like that happen, you just take the high road, and karma usually comes back to get them. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Well, and I'll add to the extent that I can, but we work together with respect to a publicized appeal of certain issues relating to NCAA transfer rules, and we're given an opportunity to submit a response to the NCAA on this issue, and I worked with Kliff in doing one of the drafts, and there were a couple of phrases I used as the advocate that he said, we don't need to say that. We can take that out. And it wasn't about substance, but it was approach. It's very consistent with what you're saying.
We try. Y'all lawyers, man. Ruthless. Ruthless. But on that note, he's very, very impressive to work with, and obviously when he's voted to be president, that's a peer group of incredible individuals that are on these panels he works for. So he does a fabulous job with Tech Athletics and, is our biggest supporter. So,
thanks. Well, back to football. Signing date was last Wednesday, national signing date. How do you go approach a young 17-year-old, 18-year-old young man to come to Tech or in talking to his parents?
Yeah, I think having been a student athlete here, it's an easy sell for me because I've lived it. I know what this university can do for you as a student if you come here and you handle your business, you do things the right way. And then I know what an incredible community it is because, like I said, I've lived it. I've had the highs and had the lows here and came out and owe everything I have to Texas Tech. And so I think that's our biggest selling point is I've sat in those exact chairs when those parents talked about academics and the programs we have here. And the reason I'm sitting in this chair right now is because of Texas Tech. And so it's an easy sell for me.
Thinking about Tech and having lived in Lubbock as a student, now as a coach, in a lot of ways, although we're well over 200,000 now, it's still a small town. You and your staff are very recognizable in the community. Many of your student athletes are very recognizable. How do you influence your staff? How do you influence the students, the team, to act professionally when they're off campus, out and about?
Yeah, we just talk about it all the time. Always act like somebody's watching you because they are. And especially, with social media these days, there's nothing that's going to happen that won't be captured. And our players, we try to monitor their social media as much as we can, but they get on there and instead of breathing for 10 seconds, they'll react and say some crazy stuff. And coach is the same way. If you're in a small town and people are watching, you got to handle your business. And is it always fair? No, but that's what you signed up for, and you got to embrace it and just be a leader in all aspects.
Sure, and all you lawyers to be, it's going to be the same whatever community that you go practice law in. You're going to be a very visible individual wherever you go. All right, Big 12, tough conference, no easy Saturdays, tough year as you've alluded to already. The end of the year, though, played a very close, exciting game against a Baylor team that just missed the national championship spot. How did you motivate your kids going that last week? Because there wasn't a bowl game coming. It wasn't the season everybody or they had hoped.
Yeah, just on pride and how few opportunities you get. Those kids, they get about 4 weeks off where it's consistently off the entire year, and then they're working for 12 opportunities that are guaranteed every year. And that was what I was, in a down year most proud of, is that when we were out of a bowl game, I felt like our players kept playing hard, kept fighting, and representing our program the way you wanted, because it would have been easy for them to shut down and, yeah, we're not going to bowl, it's been a wasted season, but they kept playing hard and kept fighting. So it's just about being a man, really and truly. If you're at this point in college athletics and you can't get excited or get up to play on a Saturday, then you don't belong here anyways.
One of the head coaches you've had, we talked about earlier, Coach Leach, he does have a law degree and opted to get into coaching instead of sitting for the bar and going that direction. But did you notice that legal background help in his philosophy or his coaching?
Yeah, I think just he was very analytical and wasn't afraid to do things his own way. Always reading, very well versed in all sorts of topics, and he was never wrong. Never wrong. He's very, very strong-willed, and he would make whatever statement he was saying, even though it wasn't right, he would make it right, argue right through it, and all of a sudden it made sense to you. So he was brilliant, though. He was a different mindset, different way of motivating, but a brilliant man.
How about the student athletes and their academics? I've already in the introduction mentioned you were a top student when you were here. We've had challenges at times with some of our football student athletes taking care of the student part of the equation. How do you influence that? Yeah,
you just try to show as much as you can the positive effect. There's 4 of us that went to school here on my staff, and just show that's why we're here. We all thought we'd still be playing in Super Bowls and playing in the NFL, and luckily we handled our business and got our education and allowed us to take that next step. And so when I got here, that was my big deal. You're coming to Texas Tech to get your education, and I'm a big believer in things off the field translate to things on the field, and that's ultimately that's why you're here. And we promise as parents we're going to do everything in our power to get your education. It is set up, for them to be successful with all the tutors and all the help they get. They really have to screw it up to not succeed.
Well, and on that screw-up aspect, what's your approach when a kid cuts class?
Yeah, we have a 5 a.m. workout, which is not pleasant. Not pleasant. It's not really a workout. It's more like Army. Our O-line coach was in the Marines, so he has all sorts of evil tricks for punishment. But yeah, so they're out there at 5 a.m. if they miss class, if they skip tutoring, disrespectful, and it seems to be working.
Wait, and so, because I work with compliance some too, we don't really call it punishment. It's a conditioning opportunity.
Right. It is.
Dean, is that something we can consider? Okay.
There you go. I will be at that one. I'll come. First one.
Texas Tech, a lot of the students may not know, we have a drug testing policy for our student athletes that includes some pretty tough penalties, up to and including being cut from the team or losing a scholarship. Why is that important?
I think it's important just to show your commitment to the team and the sacrifice. Obviously, we know the path of drugs, what it can do when you go down that path. But I think if you want to play college athletics, you can't smoke marijuana, you can't do drugs. And if you're not willing to make that little sacrifice for your teammates, for your future, then football is probably not for you. And now the line has become more blurry, I think, in college athletics, because you're going to have teams in Colorado, teams out in LA, California, that it's legal. And so I don't know how, as that keeps going, it's going to evolve. But I do know, at its base minimum, if it's against the rules to do it and you can't make that sacrifice, then football is probably not for you.
Yeah. You're a public figure here in Lubbock, but also throughout the Big 12 and nation. How do you manage the fact you're going to be under scrutiny or interact with the press, perhaps daily?
Yeah, it's just part of it. It's what you sign up for. And it's kind of why looking at the Super Bowl and y'all saw the Marshawn Lynch, the running back. He refused to do the interviews or take them serious. Well, all of us have things in our job that it may not be at the top of the list that we want to do, but it's part of your job and what you sign up for. And interacting with the media, doing things in the community, it's part of it. It's time consuming, but it's what you sign up for. So I've always looked at that and try to embrace it, have fun, treat people the right way, treat them the way you'd want to be treated, and just make the most of it. Because if you look at it the other way, you're going to be miserable. You sit up there and be negative and take it the wrong way. So I just embrace it and try to have fun with all aspects of it.
Good. Well, I've got one last one, then we'll open up to the students. You're on your way to Amarillo this evening for an alumni event and to talk about the recruiting trail from this year. I've attended some of those events in past years, and you always share the spotlight with your assistant coaches. As a leader, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I've always wanted to empower people, and all those guys on our staff want to be a head coach. So give them the opportunity to get better at things like that, to talk in front of people, to shake hands, to take those necessary steps in opportunities that couldn't be simulated elsewhere. So I love to have them talk and speak and just get better at their craft throughout the entire process.
Terrific. Well, let me open it up. Professor Batra has a mic, as does Corey. If you've got questions for Coach, here's your chance.
Start down here in the front, and then you want to grab some people in the back. And
Hey, Coach. You obviously started quarterbacking at Tech really early on, and now you're a head coach at a really young age also. Have you noticed any challenges in being thrust into a leadership role at a young age, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think there are lots of challenges. Just like, you made a good analogy, really. As a young quarterback, you step in there at 18 and you're trying to tell 22, 23-year-olds what to do. It's the same thing as a young coach. You're now in charge of people who've been coaching a lot longer than you, probably know more football than you, and you have to earn that respect. And I think, once again, as long as you treat them consistently in a manner that you'd want to be treated, and the work ethic, to me, first and foremost, trumps everything when it comes to gaining respect of your peers and older people that may know more or coach longer. Because if you're there earlier than them and you stay later than them, then they can be as mad as they want to be, but they're going to have to respect your work ethic and what you're about.
From Comfort, Texas, so Hill Country boy as well.
There you go.
If you had to narrow down to like maybe one or two interactions, what would you say some of the most impactful moments on your development as a leader were, and who were those interactions with?
That's specific. I don't know if I have just specific things that set out. I think just different people in general. I think, like I said, being around all the different coaches, their different styles, the way they carry themselves, but no just epiphany moments, I'd say. I think, like I mentioned earlier, you try to take things from everyone, but remain yourself in your leadership. I think there's people that once they get to a certain level, they try to change and they think they have to be this or be that. To me, I've always tried to be myself at the end of the day. Now, will I steal some sort of philosophies, some sort of things I've seen? Of course. But at the end of the day, if you're yourself, I don't think you can fake that, and I think people respect you for it.
Jonathan Strom. I'm from Houston and then went to A&M, so I like to pretend that you followed me to around the state. But my question is, it's kind of more with the NCAA, with the O'Bannon lawsuit and everything that's kind of been going on with that. Can I get your opinion on, using players' likeness and image, and kind of where you think the NCAA is going to go towards, or how you think schools are going to react to kind of, those legal issues?
Yeah, I'm really not that well versed in the details of it, but I think they made a big step with the cost of attendance payment, and so each player on our football team will be given around $4,500 a year, just pocket money outside their scholarship, which I think is good. I don't think the student athletes should want for anything in college, but I'm a little hesitant to start making them professional athletes at 18, 19, 20 years old. And I think that's the way it's going. I think it looks more and more so. It's such a big industry that I think that's where it's going to head. You're going to start seeing the star top players probably be pretty well compensated.
Other questions?
Hi. As someone who has gotten positions where you had less experience than people who were also trying to get your positions, and you already kind of touched on this, but what would be your biggest advice for someone who's trying to go into an area where they have less experience than the other people trying to compete with them for jobs?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned earlier, you earn respect by the work ethic. And another thing I had to learn too was just let them be heard. And you don't always have to use every piece of advice, because God knows I got a bunch of emails this year. But you hear, I mean, listen and genuinely listen, and you'll get some good answers. But it's when you give them the whole "I know everything" and cut them off, and then that's a quick way to turn people against it. Because there's something to giving a person respect who's worked at it longer than you have, and giving them that benefit of, hey, I'll hear it out. We may use it, we may not. But as long as you're very open to ideas, I've found that usually helps. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I saw the joke photo of the Super Bowl ring that showed a ring with a little ball pump device thing on it. Yeah, needle.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, that practice. I mean, I don't know what they did, but it's gone on for a long time. So I don't think it gives. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl, so it didn't give them too much of an advantage. But that's the whole deflating the footballs has been a quarterback trick for many, many years.
Question, Dan.
Hey, Coach. This is more of an X's and O's kind of question. I'm not asking for any state secrets, but what's your favorite play call? Like, whenever you send it in, you're just like, oh, I love this play.
I like it. There's a place. We're very simple on the verbiage because we like to play fast and make it easy for the kids. So it's just called Ace 95, and it's a pass route, and that's my favorite. It's through the test of time. It's probably been our most successful play when you do the data analysis every year.
Hi, I'm Blair. You were talking earlier about coaches who are hard asses and then coaches who are really nice. Which one would you label yourself as?
I'd say I am very player friendly until they prove that they can't handle it. And so we talk about all the time, you don't have to be the man, but you have to be a man in our program and handle your business. And so, yeah, I'm very player friendly. Like I said, if you're acting up here and you do everything right, you're going to be treated one way. It's when you drop down there that you got to shut the door and give them the business a little bit.
Other questions? Other questions?
Shout it out.
Evan.
Coach, you mentioned some of your mentors in football. If you're having a really good day, you guys had a big win, or you guys had maybe not so good day, who's the one person you call for advice or to share some good news?
Yeah, I still call my dad. Yeah, he like I said, he was a high school football coach, and he's still my number one go-to, and he does a good job. He's not real coachy anymore. It's just all positive vibes, which is good. A lot different than he was as a coach. So.
Would you be in favor of reinstating the game with the Aggies since you have a history with Texas A&M?
Yeah, I would love to. I think it was great for the state. I think it got to be a really good rivalry around here, and I think it'd be fun for the fans, and ultimately that's what it's about.
So, Coach, how did Texas Tech inform you you had the job, and what did you do immediately after? Party?
Yeah, party. Yeah, party. No, I was at Chancellor Hance's house, and we sat around and just kind of talked, and at the end of it, Kirby told me I had the job. And so, when you have an opportunity like that, whether you think you're ready or not, I'm big on, hey, take the job and then learn as you go and figure it out. Because I don't think anybody's ready to be a head coach. I think you just have to, take the punches and figure it out as best you can. So, yeah, I took the job. They flew me up to Lubbock. And I just remember flying. I met everybody, all sorts of people. And I remember flying back and playing, being, what did I get myself into? And it was just a whirlwind. But, yeah, I think you're always evolving as a coach, as a leader. And as different teams come and different staff comes, you may have to change and evolve. And that's kind of what I've tried to do over the first 2 years, and we'll continue to do that this third one.
In hiring, I thought of one, I'll jump in hiring your assistant coaches. You've had a few transitions. What kind of traits or characteristics do you look for to build that kind of team?
It's a great question. First and foremost, I ask them, I say, do you want to be a head coach? And if they say no, then I don't want them working for me. I want them to want to be at the highest level. It'd be similar if you wanted to hire a lawyer, you're like, well, do you want to be part of it? And they said, no, I just want to stay down here. And I think that's key. If you want to get the most out of them, if you want to get people that are going to work their tails off each and every day and try to be great, then you want somebody that's trying to take your job. And so that's where we start. And then obviously work ethic, integrity, all things that most people look for in jobs. But I want people that want my job.
Coach, 2 questions. One, will you give us a player on offense and defense from this last class you think going to make the biggest impact early on? And 2, will you please share the secret of keeping a perfect 5 o'clock shadow every single day, all day?
It's a good question. It's not easy. It took years to perfect it. But number one, defensively, there's a young man named Braden Fajoko. You may see him on campus. He's huge. You'd know. You'd be like, oh, that's him. And he graduated early. He plays defensive line, and we expect him to have some instant impact. And then wide receiver, there's a receiver on offense named J.F. Thomas from South Oak Kliff, who's a 6'4", 6'5" kid, taller than any receiver we have on campus, and we expect him to play right away and do some good things.
Coach, what are some of the characteristics you like most about the Texas Tech community?
I kind of mentioned earlier just how close-knit it is. And, even going through this tough year, I'll be at the grocery store, I'll be out, and people will come up and they say, hey, Coach, so glad to have you here. Thanks for everything you're doing. And people just appreciate, it's part of West Texas culture. If you're a good person, you do things the right way, and you work hard, people will appreciate you. And I think the community in general appreciates that our staff, this is our dream job, and we want to be here. And so it's when I left Tech, and I lived all over, lived in Europe, Canada, 5 different cities, I just missed that feeling of community and how people have each other's back out here. And so to be back here, it's been awesome to be back.
Paula, did you have a...
Other thoughts? Other questions? Thoughts from the gallery up there? Oh, yeah, we do have one.
Did coaching Johnny Manziel give you any new or interesting perspectives on leadership?
No, you know what it is? It's a good point, probably. It would be, I guess, if you're a partner at a law firm and you have a really, really smart lawyer who may be, I don't know how to say this.
Flashy?
Flashy. Y'all seen the show on USA Suits? Yes. So Johnny Manziel is like the guy on Suits. He's like in college, kind of a football savant. He wouldn't always, work the hardest really to study. Wouldn't, the ball wouldn't always go where you wanted it to go, but he was very, very effective. And I think it taught me as a leader and as a coach, sometimes you got to pull the reins back, and if they're that good, let them have some freedom to work that magic, if you will. And so that's really what I learned from him. Is there'd be plays where I don't know what that was, but I'd be high-fiving him for the touchdown. And you got to take your ego out of it. And if they're really good at what they do and they have a certain way to do it, I think it taught me to pull back a little bit.
Other last questions?
All right. We got somebody up top.
All the way on up.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on out, man.
Do you have eligibility left? All All right. Well, Coach, thanks very much. We appreciate you. We
pleasure.
know you got to head on to Amarillo, but we're glad you're here.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And by the way, one also big round of applause for Professor Shannon for. Remember, Chief Judge Stewart, again, this Wednesday is coming down. So also very, very interesting. Thank you so much. Thanks for setting this up.
Yes.